12 hours of light, 12 hours of darkness. But besides that, it's a day when we're going to have a conversation about two sports conferences that are going to be taking place in Kenya this week. One in Nairobi on Wednesday, and it is about sports as an asset. For a very long time, sport has been looked at as an amateur sport, and if you look at the local languages, roughly translated, it's about play. Even in Swahili tunasema michezo. So that's an asset. How do you optimize it? Sport is an industry that has got the capacity to do something in the close of $500 billion a year. But how do we optimize that? What are the way you go around it and make the best out of it? And also on Thursday in Eldoret, Koitalel Samuel University College have partnered with the Tampere University of Applied Sciences. They will be hosting a conference, and it is about developing a sports policy for Kenya and also developing sports science. So good that it's happening around Eldoret when a lot of work has been done around that area. And I can be specific about a lot of information and data that was collected. Think of the Breaking 2 project and the INEOS 159 project. So that is another one. And also over the weekend, we had the World Indoor Athletics Championships. And what's the story about it? Not the best of outings for Kenya. Just 2 medals and not a single gold. Our neighbors Ethiopia had 4 gold medals, 3 silver and 2 bronze. We shall also be taking a review of that. But also, in the news, we've got the World Forest Day today at Ngong Hill Forest. We're going to have the Cabinet Secretary for Environment, Keriako Tobiko, overseeing that, the Safina National Delegates Conference at Bomas, and also draw briefing by Colonel Retired Cyrus Oguna. But earlier this morning, the Cabinet Secretary for the Interior, Dr. Fred Matiang'i, was in Nairobi, and he was addressing the NDICC partnership. Let's listen to what Dr. Fred Matiang'i had to say.
Colleague, the PS Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Macharia, has said this is a second in our series of monthly consultations with our development partners. We've had excellent consultations. Let me begin, first of all, by saying on my own behalf, on behalf of the executive branch of government, say how grateful we are to our development partners. All of them who are here. We've worked very closely with them. We've gone through serious challenges in the past on COVID-19. Some of the vaccines we are administering in the country have been contributed by our development partners who are here. We've worked with some of them on, quite a wide range of development projects and activities. All the development partners who are here are engaged with the Kenya government on various development activities. We met to compare notes on how we are doing and how these activities are going. And they range from the state of the economy and the work we are doing together. That's why my brother and my colleague, our Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury, was here to we are preparing on our part as the executive branch for the general elections, and also how we are responding to drought and the challenges of the drought in the country, as it were. We've discussed extensively on how we are going to deal with the parts of our country, and we are going to work together with our development partners on this. Our colleagues from the communication team will circulate a full-length press statement about the discussions we have had. But just to say, on behalf of all my colleagues who are here this morning, and on behalf of the executive branch of government, to say how grateful we are to our development partners for their continued support, their focus on our country, and the solid collaboration that we have had with them. Before I invite the World Bank Country Director, who will say something on their behalf, I need also to say that this has happened courtesy of the very strong focus that our government has had on fostering and building better working relations with our development partners. Our president has been at the forefront of building very solid and sustainable partnerships with our development partners. The UNEP 50 and the UNEA that took place in Nairobi, the enhanced work that the UN is doing here, and the increased interest of foreign investment in our country are all testament to our president's focus on ensuring that Kenya remains at the forefront of economic and global development activity, not just in this region, but across the continent, and that is bearing fruit. And our meeting is held in the context of fostering those relations and ensuring discussed or issues to be raised, including on how we are preparing ourselves for the general elections. We are able to be forthcoming and forthright with our partners and respond to them effectively as we have done this morning. We can't thank them enough. We continue to work with them. We will be responsive to them. I have made that assurance on behalf of the executive branch of government. We will be very responsive to our development partners, and we will continue to work with them as we move forward. I'll now request the World Bank Country Director, Keith, to say a word or two on their behalf before we end this.
Thank you, Honourable C. On behalf of the whole development partner community, which comprises the diplomatic community as well as the United Nations system, we want to thank government very much for the opportunity to come together in these gatherings. Once the COVID situation eased up last month, government began hosting these meetings in person, which of course is a great tribute to the progress Kenya has made on the epidemic, and we are very grateful to be able to come together like this because it enables the entire partnership group to make sure that our support to Kenya is well aligned, that we are not having too many overlaps, leaving too many gaps, that we can hear directly from government on the priorities going forward, and we can adjust our own programs accordingly. We're gratified, obviously, by the progress on the epidemic, by the strong rebound that the economy has shown, and by the updates we've received on the refugee situation and, of course, on the drought. We also congratulate government and the entire global community and the very successful UNEP at 50 event. This is, of course, a landmark, and Kenya has long been a very effective host to that partnership. So we are grateful of all of this, but still mindful of the challenges the country faces going forward, along with many others, and so we remain collectively committed to supporting the people of Kenya, working through its government and its representatives, both at the national and the county level, to help Kenya to move forward and continue not just to recover from the epidemic, but to regain a robust program of growth and prosperity going forward. So thank you, CS, and all your colleagues.
Thank you. The co-chair of
opportunity to get together. We appreciate it a lot as a donor community. Indeed, the world is facing challenges. We went through some of them, drought, but also the impact of the Ukraine-Russia situation on the world economy. And in this time, we have a key need to listen to each other. It's what partnership is about. It's what we want to, how we want to build our relationship with Kenya, all of us, and also to better to understand to your needs and continue to be your key partners. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. There will be a press release that will be released hereafter. Thank you and good morning.
Was a meeting of the National Development Implementation and Communication Committee, and you could see that we had the Cabinet Secretary for the Interior, Dr. Fred Matiang'i, the Cabinet Secretary to the Treasury, Ambassador Ukuri Yatani, and also we had the Foreign Affairs Principal Secretary, Kamau Macharia, and they were working together with the donor community, the World Bank and other Bretton Woods institutions, and we shall be getting that full report in a subsequent bulletins. Well, welcome to the conversations that are spoken about, all about sport. Two are going to be on conferences, and one, a recap of the weekend that was in Belgrade, Serbia, where we had the World Athletics Indoor Championships. Before we continue, to introduce our sign language interpreter this hour, her name is Anne Wangeshi. Well, on Thursday in Eldoret, the Koitalel Samoei University College, it's a constituent college of the University of Nairobi, will be hosting a conference, a one-day forum, and it will take place on Thursday, the 24th of March, and it is about the development of sports science and policy in Kenya. There will be representatives from government, from sporting federations, from the National Olympic Committee of Kenya, and also those in the sporting ecosystem. And to understand this partnership that's going to be between the Koitalel Samoei University College and the Tampere University of Applied Sciences, that's a university in Finland, we have got on my immediate right the principal of Koitalel Samoei University College, Professor Jackson Tow. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you, Mr. Wahome.
Yes, and we also have got person who's in charge of international relations at Tampere University of Applied Sciences from the land of 1,000 lakes, Finland, Peter Perttula. Got that right?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And let me start with you, Professor. The whole concept of having sports science and also sport policy developed through an academic institution. How did Koitalel Samwek University College come up with this?
Yeah, thank you very much. This came up with the fact that as a country, we have done very well in sports, generally speaking, and especially in the track sports, we've been doing extremely well. But we also note that we haven't yet developed policies that guide the sports sector for our sports industry to prosper and be sustainable. And we also note that there are very few institutions in the country that have developed the sports science curricula that has all the ingredients that can make sports to prosper in our country. So we thought that there was need for us to partner with countries that have a little ahead of us in terms of sports. And Finland is one country that has a very robust sports industry and sports training and sports programs. We thought that our partnership would go a long way in assisting the university college to come up with sports programs in science and also in management sports. Yes.
And Peter, let me come to you. How did Tampere University and KSUC come into a partnership?
Okay, so we have a mutual friend called Cornelius Kiplagat. He represents Max Global Company, and he is the one who has been initiating this cooperative. So he has been bringing different delegations from Kenya to see our facilities in Finland, in Tampere, and vice versa. Our experts have been traveling to Kenya, to different counties, different schools, different entities. And this is how we have been kind of able to tailor the best possible solutions from Finland and bring it to Kenya.
All right. Which are the key solutions that Cornelius and KSUC were looking for when it comes to specifically sports science?
I think that in Finland we are known as having one of the best education systems in the world, and I think that one of the reasons is that we are constantly adjusting our system, so we are not just making one system and having it fixed for many years. Every year we are revising all of our curriculums, and we are all the time trying to learn from different places. And here, I think that from the Finnish perspective, Kenya is very interesting for us because, of course, every day we watch sports, we see that Kenyan athletes are bringing gold medals in different sports. But on the other hand, in sports like ice hockey, Finland just won the Olympic gold medal. And Finland has been doing very well in football, in, for example, basketball. So Finland has a big history in sports where you have a team of many people. And from my perspective, Kenyans are more of doing these individual performances. So I think that there we have a lot to learn from each other.
Ah, okay. Well, actually, in Finland, you're best known for having provided training base for Julius Yego in the javelin. I think in Finland you love throwing things a lot, and yes, also for your rally drivers.
Yes,
that's what we know Finland for from the sporting perspective. And Professor, when this partnership started, with Max Global and Tampere, what were some of the gaps in the Kenyan scene that you saw that needed to be filled? And say over the next 5 or so years, then you would be fully ready for these children who are coming under the new curriculum.
Thank you very much. One of the major gaps that we noticed or have realized in our country is training, and training our sports men and women to have sport that is sustainable. Training comes in the form of the curriculum, it comes in terms of coaching, and also in terms of having the infrastructure in the sports arena. And one of the areas or gaps that we have noticed in our country is that we have bestowed all the confidence in the coaching. And training is individualized, as opposed to doing a teamwork. To produce a sports person who can excel and do well requires teamwork from different experts and expertise. In the medical, we need the medics, we need the physicians, you need the biomedical people, you need to have nutrition, you need to have the masseurs and many other people, so that you can produce an athlete that is competitive and can sustain his discipline over a long period of time. To crown it all, we need a policy framework that will define who is a coach, who is a sports manager, and to safeguard our young sportsmen and women, because we've seen gaps where we have athletes, for example, who come up within a very short time they fall out, because there's no clear way of sustaining their talent and their sportsmanship. So this we hope to gain from this forum with Finland and the county government and national government and all the players in this space of sports. We want to come up with ideas which will inform our curriculum, ideas to make us develop policies which will sustain our sport industry in the country.
Well, interesting that, I mean, for KS, you see, is that, you've got this background of education, with Mosorio Teachers College coming through there.
Right.
For the earlier part, let's look at what would be the easy part. Let's talk about the physiotherapy and education around that, because being based in Nandi County means that there is a market for physiotherapists, knowing the number of athletes who are there. And also the other one that I would like to take a look at is when it comes to sports management. Let us look at those two first.
Right. Thank you very much. Let us begin with sports management. That many a time in our country, we have had a situation where we have sports managers with little or no background in sports. Or we have a situation where a person who was formerly a champion in some sport or discipline is made to supervise and run sport without having had any kind of training, any kind of exposure to the sports industry and sports world. So that mismatch creates gaps that will not help our sport to grow. So we are saying that one of the ways in which we can sustain and grow our sport is by enabling the sports managers to have some training, some education in sports management from experts who can manage sports. That's one way. Then the other one is in terms of how we handle coaching. And coaching is not about you having been a good player, having been a good athlete. There is more to being a coach. And coach, we have come to realize, is not an individual affair. It is a team spirit of different expertise being managed by one person. The other bit that we've seen in our country are guidelines on who should manage the sport, who should be a coach. Because we have many pretenders who are saying they are coaches, but have no certification. They have no papers or any experience. And we are saying there is need for the government at the national level and the county level to work together and establish systems and structures that can help the sport and sports people to nurture their talent and to take them to higher levels of achievement. You've just mentioned in the sport in Serbia, the competitions, in Belgrade, in Serbia, we have not done well. We should ask ourselves, why are we not doing well? What is the problem? Because we think that sport is about your physique and being able to run. There is more to it. There is a mental preparation. There is a nutrition. There is the education part of it. So that if we have all that knowledge being put together in the curriculum, in our frameworks, we will be able to produce better competitive athletes. And I think the signs are there for us to address that gap. Thank you.
And Peter, let me come to you from experiences that you've picked up in Finland. Then, how does it, say, for example, the Finnish Football Association now partner with an academic institution, because the Football Association is the one that will run the technical coaching courses, but then there is the other aspect. How do these links work?
So I think that in Finland the great thing is that most of our education is work-life based. And if you are, for example, studying in Varala Sports Institute. That means that all of your studies are linked to actually working with sportsmen and women. So, for example, the national football team could do a collaboration where students at Varala Sports Institute are practicing their skills together with real athletes. So even in our studies, like everything that we do is done for a purpose, not just for getting a paper, but it's done for getting skills. And then you get the paper showing that you have obtained these skills. So I think that's the big thing. Everything is work-life based. And in this case, for example, our physiotherapists, they might, for example, be assigned to a few top-performing athletes. And together with experienced physiotherapists, they are learning and kind of supervising. So everything is learned on the job already while studying.
Wow. And quite a different shift from what we have, where it's, for example, it's at the final year when you go to now your internship.
Yes.
How would you learn to see that our curriculum is changed such that from year one, for example, you would have, say, because you're based around Mosoriot, let me just speak world champion Ruth Chepngetich, is that you're working with her and her management team.
Yes. That is a kind of programs we want to establish in the college, where once we have the curriculum developed and approved and implementing it, the curriculum will have a lot of internship and partnerships with the athletes, so that and the other experts that work in the industry, such that the training of the athletes and training of students is not just about theory, it's not just about content, but more of the field work, more of the internship and practicum, so that the curriculum is not all about theory. In fact, in the current reforms being done by government and the KBC, where the competency-based curriculum has been adopted, much of the training at all levels is to emphasize on competence, on the ability to do and deliver, and less of theory, less of content, less of the classroom. And so once we have these programs running, we shall have more of the athletes being taken through the actual practice, merging theory with practice, and inviting the different expertise to come on board and transfer this to open this up. For a long time, it's been very opaque. And you've seen cases of incidences where our athletes have suffered.
Yes.
Others have lost their lives because we don't know, we've not managed it. We don't, if you today woke up and said, I'm a trainer, you've seen Chepngetich Janet doing very well, and say, now I want to train you, and you start doing that. We need to vet you. We need to accredit you as a trainer. We need to know who you are. What is your training? What is your capacity? So this policy would bring that out, so that we don't have pretenders. We don't have people who prey on young girls and young boys to say that I can train you, and you want to take advantage. So a policy that would be developed from that level and having all the stakeholders coming on board and to the national level needs to be developed and adopted to harmonize the training in the country.
And Peter, the whole conversation that I'm picking here is about picking best practices from around the world. Just give us a perspective of how that sports policy works in Finland, such that there are so many, there's a whole sporting ecosystem that is vibrant and works together with government and the people who've invested the money in it.
This is kind of a difficult question, but I think what we have to show, first of all, is that nowadays we are performing on the top level of most sports where you have a team. So I think that this is the newest kind of trend in education. So we have shifted from this teacher-centered learning to the student-centered learning. And now we are heading towards this team-based learning. And I think this is what our teachers are taught to look for. So when they are traveling, when they are seeing how foreign people study or train. So for example, our teachers could be traveling and seeing how Kenyans train, how do your runners train, or they could go to Sweden to see how the ice hockey players train. And it's all about adjusting and kind of copy-pasting the best practices and mixing them into our context. And I think that this is what we're looking to do here also.
And with, the world, picking up and sharing cultures, how then do you get, for example, if you have somebody from Finland who wants to come to Kenya, or you have got a researcher from Finland coming to Kenya, how then do you try and integrate, the diverse cultures, the different cultures?
I think that in these cases, what is vital is that we have people physically traveling to see the context of the other party. So we cannot do this online. I don't believe that it can be done online where you are just showing presentations to each other. I think that it needs real people traveling to see, okay, we are traveling to the counties now. It's important for our trainers to see the training facilities, to see the young people who will be trained, to see the parents of young people who will be trained, and vice versa. We need Kenyan delegations visiting us, visiting our facilities, because it's still, everyone wants to move into this completely online world, but I don't think that that's the correct way.
Well, thank God the pandemic's done. We can now move.
Yes, finally.
We love being on the ground. And Professor, how do you then, because looking at the profile of Koitalel Samoei University College is that you want to go to every sub-county in Nandi, have a campus there eventually. How do you want to work with the community such that your program is well accepted? And for example, if somebody's in primary school, they can say, look, there's a pathway for me in sport science, in sport policy that can be achieved eventually.
Very good question, Wahome. I want to say that a university in its very nature is supposed to do three things: to teach, do research, and community outreach, and to share research findings with the community and engage the community for the mutual benefit of the community and the university. So by going out and having campuses in different sub-counties of the Nandi County is one way of making the university reach out to the community and to see how they can benefit. And we're only citing one particular area of sports science. There could be other, we intend to, once we establish other programs, like say in agriculture, the same format and same model would work. But in terms of creating synergy between the university and the community, the best way is to have projects, engagements with the community. In terms of sports, we want to bring on board primary schools and secondary schools and tertiary schools so that we are able to build their capacity, train their sports masters and sports women on the best practices, and for them to appreciate and choose the sports pathway As you are aware, in the CBC that we're currently implementing, is now in grade 6, one of the pathways at senior secondary is sports science and creative arts. The others is we have humanities and we have STEM. So we will be responding to the change that the government is putting in place by enabling students from senior level to choose from these 3 pathways. And when we make sport to be our niche, and given that we are located in a region where there is rich talent, we'll be able to attract very many students from across the country, by the way, to pursue sports science pathway. And once we have all the facilities and infrastructure and the best curricula, we will be able to produce the best sportsmen and women in the country.
Yeah. And having, just to give an understanding from Tampere University of Applied Sciences, what has been the continuous, conversations with federations, sports people, or the sporting ecosystem in Finland? What are some of the great outcomes that you can always talk about that make somebody always come back and say, let's say the Archery Federation or the Athletics Federation of Finland comes back and says, Tampere, help us again?
I think something that we have achieved quite well in Tampere is the cooperation that our educational institutes do together. So Tampere University of Applied Sciences, for example, has partnered with Tampere Adult Education Center and Varala Sports Institute. So as a concrete example, we will now start training a group of Kenyan physiotherapy students in Finland, but it's not just basic physiotherapy, it's tailored so that it's focusing on sports physiotherapy. So the teachers of the University of Applied Sciences are working together with physiotherapists of Varala Sports Institute. So I think this is our strength. We are seeing each other as partners, not kind of as, let's say, competition. So as Tampere, we are a very strong region in this. So we have a wide variety of different educational institutes who have contracts between each other, so we work very closely. And this is how we can usually find the best solution. So we don't think that we can do it alone. We cannot say that Tampere University of Applied Sciences could give the best results alone, but together with the partners, I think that we can give pretty good project opportunities.
Right. And Professor, when I'm looking at the conference program, and let me just look at some of the people who will be there. I can see that the Cabinet Secretary for Sports is expected to be there, Ambassador Amina Mohammed,
right.
And Professor George Magoha, the Cabinet Secretary for Education. That's one of those who are going to be at that place. And also we have got the Vice Chancellor of the University of Nairobi. That's your parent university.
Yes.
When they heard about this conversation, what was their reaction to it, and how you can input into a new way of looking at sports in the country?
Oh, they have. So thank you very much. The parent ministry, especially both the education ministry and sports and culture, have been very supportive, and they are very excited about the initiative because it's part of the efforts to grow sports science in the country. We are going a long way in terms of implementing the aspirations of the country and the universities. So they are very happy about it, and they've been supportive, and they are supporting us in every aspect. For your information, the sports minister, for example, Amina Mohammed, has been to the region several times. In the last time he came, he presided over sports tour tournament at Lobo Village, which is in Wazingishu County.
Yes, the cross-country event.
The cross-country event. And prior to that, she also came to attended the Agnes Cherop Memorial cross-country tour. So you can see the enthusiasm and the passion she has in the sports. And all these initiatives are welcomed. The Vice Chancellor of the University of Nairobi has been very supportive of the university. And what we are trying to come up is in line with the vision of the university and the government in terms of supporting the sports industry because of what sport has done for the country. in terms of marketing, in terms of developing careers, in terms of branding, and elevating our image as a country. And so and the fact that we are also working with the counties is promoting the synergy between the national government and the county government in identifying talent, training for the mutual benefit of the sports persons and also the government. So we're in synergy and we're working together, and we look forward to them coming on board to engage in that forum, because there are different groups. There's the university, there's the government, there's education, there is the sports personality and sports people in attendance. We have the manufacturing sector, the Coca-Cola, the Safaricom, all of them coming on board, because we need to realize that sport is not just about running, it's about branding, it's about promoting certain things for the country. You can use sport to promote climate awareness, climate change. And Eliud Kipchoge is doing very well on that.
Uh-huh.
We've seen Catherine...
Actually, he's one of your panelists.
He's one of them. We've seen Catherine Dereba doing so much in terms of creating awareness and using sport to promote gender parity and gender awareness. We also have people like, I've talked about Eliud Kipchoge. We also have had other personalities who use sport to champion certain causes which are dear for our country. It could be in health. It could be in the area of environmental conservation. So let us use sport to promote positive, it was Ferdinand Omanyala, now being used to promote peace. You know, we're in an election year.
Yes.
And we've been using sport to tell Kenyans that we need to have peace, we need to be united, and sport is what brings us together. And if we can bring these personalities to champion the peace at a time like this, and I'm happy that the media, including you and the nation, the Standard, have been promoting peace messages, Miminim Kenya. And so when you identify as a Kenyan, and we have sports celebrities championing the same, we shall achieve and attain peace and prosperity. And that's the point we are trying to put across.
And Peter, let me talk about some, you will also be speaking mainly about education, sports and career development at the conference. And also you shall have a keynote speaker, Sami Putonen, is going to be speaking about intersport service. He's an intersport service advisor in business. And also we shall have also from Tampere, we're going to be having also Eva Lisa Viscari plus Kati Aimonen. You could be telling us about their key strengths, you know, and where they will be giving, you know, their talks on Thursday.
I think that the team that we brought with us to Kenya this time is consisting of very different kinds of experts. So, for example, Kati is the manager of our practical nurse teachers. But on the other hand, Sami...
Actually, that's nursing now.
Yes, that is nursing. But then on the other hand, Sami works for Business Tampere, and his job is to kind of promote the education and the industry collaboration. Because of course, as I mentioned, most of our study programs are based on work-life skills. So of course we need the industries. If we are talking about the sports industry, we need advertising skills. Yes. We need physiotherapists. We need nurses. It's such a big thing. It's not just the athlete that we see on TV. It's a whole kind of system behind it. And that's why our team is kind of consisting of different kinds of skills. And for example, Eva-Lisa Viskari, she's an expert on climate change issues and especially cleaning water. So it's very interesting, and you will hear on Thursday on how she will bring this out related to sports.
Mm-hmm. And at the end of it all, what's a message that, you know, what you'd like to share with Kenya and what you'd like Kenya to share with you?
Personally, something that I have realized in my short sports career is that if you have been a high-performing athlete that does not automatically mean that you are a high-performing coach. So I think that that is like the mindset that we have to get rid of. So traditionally in Finland, for example, we are famous for the rally drivers that we have. So we have maybe made the mistake of thinking that, okay, you have won the championship 20 years ago, you must be a good coach for young people, but it does not work that way. So I think that most athletes need some formal training to become the best coaches, because it's a completely different thing to tell on your achievements than to actually kind of transform the knowledge that you have to other people.
All right, then I won't have Harry Rovanpera as my coach. Professor, as we wind up, what's the message that you would like to reach to the people who are in sports in Kenya as you embark on this journey of developing sport science and sport policy?
Thank you very much. I think the key message is that you can use sport to bring more opportunities for the country and to make the country prosper, and not just to look at sports as a one-end game of just winning a gold medal and that is all. We can use sport to promote peace, to promote unity in the country. We can use sport to market our country as a tourist destination. We can use sport to champion causes, food, environment, and many other worthy causes that sport can bring to the country, because we know sport brings us together. And the more we use sport and tailor it and package it to get more for the country, the better. To create more sportsmen and women, and to have coaches who are more competent, not based on the history, but based on competence, and to see sport as teamwork, not just an individual affair. So that, I think, is a message we're trying to put across. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Yes, that is Professor Jackson Toh. He's a principal of the Koitalel Samuel University College. It is a constituent college of the University of Nairobi. It's based in Nandi County, Mosorio Teachers College. If you know where that college is, then you have got the right place. And also we have got Peter Pertula. He's from the Tampere University of Applied Sciences. And on Thursday, the 24th of March in Eldoret, there will be the Forum for Development of Sports Science and Policy in Kenya, and the theme is linking education, sports and industry. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Well, we shall be taking a short break, and when we come back, let's talk about the weekend that Kenyans do not want to remember. The World Indoors in Belgrade, Serbia, just 2 medals, a silver and a bronze, no gold. Coach Stephen Waniki joins us in a short while.
Are you an aspiring candidate in the upcoming general elections? Do you want your agenda and manifesto to reach your voters effectively? At KBC, we have the most comprehensive and credible online platform that has profiles of all prospective candidates. Log on to www.kbc.co.ke/2022 aspirants and let Kenyans know more about you, your past achievements, your manifesto, and your development agenda once you get elected to office. What's more, the website is easy to navigate. We will create your profile, post pictures and short videos with your campaign messages at affordable hosting fees. Log on to www.kbc.co.ke/2022 aspirants today and establish your brand authority as we lead towards the forthcoming general elections.
FM ilayska ummadda.
Mundos divididos por una sombra de traición.
Stop it. I have no problem with Mariela being here.
Well, I do.
No. Mother, what happened? What's going on? Why are you crying? Why?
My son. It's Rogelio. Have you seen the way Alonso looks at Mariela? You have your enemy way too close, and I think it's about time you did something.
Is there anything you want to say about it, sir?
He was the one who killed her. He killed Florencia?
Lying heart. Fue sembrando el veneno y la ambición entre dos.
Well, and welcome back to Sports Check on this Monday morning, where we are having conversations around sport. And we've had one about sports, science and policy in Kenya, a forum on Thursday in Eldoret. The second conversation now is about an event that took place over the weekend. The World Athletics Indoor Championships took place in Tampere, Finland. And we have got a lot, to talk about. Very tough questions being asked. And overall, 2 medals coming the way of Kenya. A silver from 17-year-old Noah Kibet. He became the youngest silver medalist at a World Indoors. And then also, we had Abel Kipsang against the 2 fastest men in the 1,500 meters indoors. The current world record holder, Jakob Ingebrigtsen, and the immediate past world record holder, Samuel Tefera. And he finished third, but you could tell the class that was different. And also, what a show coming in from Omanyala in the heats. But I'm going to let Coach Stephen Mwaniki take us through what he saw in an event where there were 4 indoor world records broken. And Coach, good morning.
Good morning to you.
I know everyone would want to cane you at the moment, but I will not let that happen. But first, overall, from the team that was in Belgrade, let's talk about Noah Kibet. You saw him perform at the World Under-20s last year. He is still eligible for the Under-20, but at 17, becoming the youngest medalist at a World Indoors. What was your takeout from him and the way he was running?
Yeah, the young man did very well, exceptionally well, because we did not expect much from him, knowing that he's coming from, he's still now transforming from the junior level to the senior level. That was quite spectacular for him to be able to get us a silver medal. And that is a promising future for Kenya. Yeah.
And knowing very well that he's 17, running against people like Mariano Garcia of Spain, and there was also Bryce Hopewell of the US. How did you see his tactics working out in that event?
With the indoor arena, the track is 200 meters, and it's tricky for us. We are used to 400 meters. And I could see that he had to fight for his position, because there was jostling here and there, but he was able to maintain his position. And there he was. He was able to get the silver medal for the country. And that is quite impressive.
All right.
And I wish to congratulate the young man, Noah Kibet.
Well, we'll be coming back to that conversation, and we'll stick with the 800 meters and, talk about Conseslus Kipruto, who had a great indoor showing when the indoor season was running. He was right at the top, but did not hit the peak in Belgrade. But we'll be coming back to that. But right now, let us join our reporter, John Jacob Kuria, who's at the Bomas of Kenya, where the Safina Party is holding its National Delegates Conference.
Good morning, Daniel Wahome. Indeed, we're coming to you live from the Bomas of Kenya, and this is where the Safina Party National Delegates Conference is happening. The expected endorsement of Jimmy Wanjigi as the presidential nominee of the Safina Party. Any moment from now, we expect the arrival of the Safina Party leader, the senior counsel, Paul Kebugi Moite, and then followed by Jimmy Wanjigi. Of course, there's a number of VIPs expected again to stream into the hall, including Deputy President William Ruto and other Kenya Kwanza leaders. I asked Jimmy Wanjigi, obviously, on Wednesday last week whether he was gravitating towards Kenya Kwanza, and said this: every possibility, it could be the Deputy President endorsing him, or it could be the other way around. And obviously, this is where we expect an announcement to happen when the hundreds of delegates congregating inside this hall endorse Jimmy Wanjigi officially as the presidential nominee of the Safina Party. Safina Party is an old party formed by Senior Counsel Paul Mwite so many years ago, and this is the first time that it is growing. This is the first time the Safina Party is roaring. Obviously, with a presidential candidate, you will remember it has had a presidential candidate in the name of Paul Mwite before, but this is the second time again it's having a presidential candidate. But in most cases, it has already, it will always, have candidates in the civic seats as well as, the National Assembly. At some point, former MP JJ Kamodo serving under Safina Party in the 2002 elections, as well as Mukurweini, Member of Parliament, the former MP for Mukurweini, Kabando Wakabando, also coming into Parliament through the Safina Party. So it's a party really that has had its footmarks in the National Assembly. I don't think it has been lucky to have a member in the Senate or even a governor. Will it compete this time and get a president, for example, a governor, a woman rep, or MP? That's the big question today. But this event here brings together hundreds of delegates of the Safina Party, a near oligarch to a person who really wants to run office, from being kingmaker to wanting to be king. This is the first time he's coming out. He declared his ambitions under the ODM party. You know what happened there, including his eventual, ejection from Kasarani's National Delegates Conference, and that's when he switched tent to the Safina Party, and this is why he has pitched tent. He will be running for president on this party. Whether he will go the full course, that's up to him, and obviously that we will know very clearly here after the National Delegates Conference. But that's just it, Daniel Wahome. Once the NDC is underway, we will be coming back to you, but I'll take matters back to studio so you can continue with Matters Sports. Daniel.
Thank you very much, John Jacob Kuria, speaking to us from the Bomas of Kenya, where the Safina Party is holding the National Delegates Conference, and they are expected to endorse the presidential aspirations of Jimmy Wanjigi, who's the flag bearer for the presidential seat for this year's general election, and also let them chart a path about which coalition they may be partnering with. John Jacob Kuria will be keeping us abreast with the events at the Bomas of Kenya. We get back into our conversation, and this is around sport. And we were talking about the 800 meters. Our silver was won by 17-year-old Noah Kibet, but there was the other athlete in the men's 800 meters, Conseslus Kipruto. And there were a lot of hopes, Coach, that on Conseslus Kipruto, given that he had, what would say, a good indoor season running in Europe, in France, in the UK, and also in Germany. Just where did it go wrong for Conseslus?
As I had said earlier, with the indoor event, it's a bit tricky for us because we are used to a 400-meter track. The other thing also, being a middle and long distance, we were just coming from our preparation. We are from cross-country. And as we were now embarking on track event, is a bit to expect much from the athletes because we normally pick around May, June there. That is when you see our athletes going to Doha in May and perform very well. But this was a bit early. Running a track event in March, February there was a bit tricky for us. But at least we have to say those who represented us did their best. Yeah.
Now, let me just come now to the men's 1,500 meters. And Abel Kipsang winning a bronze medal, but you have also to look at the quality of the field. World record holder Jakob Ingebrigtsen and Samuel Tefera, he won that title in 2018, retained it and Tefera is immediate former world record holder in the 1500 indoors. Looking at that field, what was its quality? And where Kipsang ended up?
That was a world-class quality. The athletes who were performing in that event, having the world record holder for indoors, and also having the Olympic champion running in the 1500 meters, and having Abel Kipsang getting the bronze medal. It sounds good for us, because it means we have somebody who is now preparing for the World Championships. And you know, World Championship is coming in August, and this is whereby we will need to defend our title, where we won in Doha, Qatar. So that was quite spectacular for Kipsang to get the bronze medal for Kenya. Yeah.
And looking at, the future of the 1500 meters for Kenya, Timothy Cheruiyot, who you are actually from the same formation as Timothy Cheruiyot. We have the two lines coming back together, and now with Abel Kipsang. What's the outlook for the 1500 meters?
Yeah, we have a bright future, especially having now Kipsang moving up. You remember during the Olympics he was in the finals, and he couldn't be able to be to be at the podium. But this time round, he looks quite promising. And also, we expect Cheruiyot. His preparation is going on very well. He was in Kisumu for the weekend meeting, the third weekend meeting, and we still believe that he is also preparing well for the World Championships.
Yeah. Now, the other one that I would like to talk about is the men's 3,000 meters. When you say he's so close but still so far, Daniel Simiyu Ebenyo and Jacob Krop, and you have to look at the athletes they were up against, Selemon Barega and Lamecha Girma.
These are seasoned athletes. Barega has been running the indoors, and Ebenyo, I can't be able to figure out if last year he was in indoors or those other years. And he's coming up, because you remember this is the same young man who was denied to go to major event because of the issues of...
when he broke out as a national champion, I think that was in 2019, and he had only taken, I think, just 1 or 2 doping tests.
Yeah.
But he needed a third, which he couldn't force.
Yeah. So Ebenyo is also coming up, but if you watch keenly on how he was running the event, he was so much into concentrating on where the opponents were. He was not working on his pace. You could see that kind of looking here and there instead of trying. And sometimes even he was inviting the Ethiopians to come in front. And it's quite intimidating for him. But let's say at least he was able to finish at the 4th position. That was good for him.
Actually, the pictures are on your screen right now. They are a rerun of the 3,000 meters, and this is at the World Indoor Championships that were in Belgrade, Serbia over the weekend and broadcast on KBC Channel 1. Looking at it is, where is that temptation? If you just take a look at, from the way Simi is running, where is the temptation, to try and keep up with the pace of the Girma and Barega, because they alternate it and throw you off balance?
Yeah, it seems the Ethiopians had prepared very well for this event, and having Girma leading the pack was part of their plan, and having Barega hanging behind, that was a good plan to execute at the last moment and scoop a medal for the Ethiopia. And it seems these Ethiopians were ready for this event.
Well, talking about the Ethiopians, this is how it all went down. They won 4 gold medals, 3 silver medals, and 2 bronze medals. But let's talk about their women coach now. The women's 1,500 meters, Tsegai Gudaf, fastest woman over that distance at the moment. How did that go down? And remember that Edna Jebitok was meant to double in the 1,500 and the 3,000, but ran only in the 3,000 meters flat on Friday night. She couldn't double, so this was a case where the Ethiopians had it from the word go.
Yeah, the Ethiopians, what I've said is, it seems as if the Ethiopians are prepared for this event. While we were busy trying to build up our endurance doing the cross country and all that, these guys were very busy trying to prepare for these world events. And you could look at the way the Ethiopians were communicating. You know, running is also communication. You could see these guys were ready. They are very ready for this event. And it gives us an opportunity to sit down and make look at it very carefully, so that in 2 years' time we'll take a very strong team for the world indoors, because indoors and outdoors, these are different ball games.
Yeah. Well, let's now talk about the women's 3,000 meters. I mean, that was an implosion from Edna and Beatrice, but eventually went with Ethiopia's Lemlem Hailu, the women's 3,000 meters.
Yeah, the women 3,000 meters with Lemlem Hailu, she was also, she proved that she was ready for this event, and we could not match them. The way they were able to execute their final part of the event was exceptional, and this sets motion into the Kenyan coaches to look into it critically and prepare for the coming World Championships. Because if we don't prepare ourselves, then the Ethiopians they are ready this year.
Well, let's move on to the sprints and talk about Ferdinand Omanyala winning his first heat in 6.62 seconds. But when it came to the semi-finals, he finished third, 6.64 seconds. And just what was it with heat one? Because it looks like nobody wanted to get off the blocks initially.
Yeah, with the start, with this rule that there is no false start. Once you're caught, you are out of the event. And yeah, the start is something that the coach needs to work on the stats. Secondly, the coach needs to prepare the athlete. When you're doing the warm-up, the proper warm-up gives the athlete the chance to be able to start properly. And that is very crucial. It's just a subject on its own. The start is a subject on its own, and it's very crucial in these sprint events.
And at what point do you do that little bit of counting between, because I remember at one point some would say the moment you're told set is 1, 2, go. How do you prepare your mind for that?
Before an event, before any international event, normally we have a starter at the field whereby you can go and synchronize with the starter. The starters are taught that once they see that the athletes are ready, there's nothing about counting 1, 2, 3. Once you see they are ready, the guns go off. Yeah, so it is important before an event, the athlete goes to the field, requests to have that session with the starter, and then once they get it, so that is how it is done. The other thing also, the start, as I had told you earlier, the start is very crucial for the sprint events, especially 100 meters, 60 meters. If you are left on the block, then it's hard to catch up with those who have gone. Yeah.
And the one question I've been asked over the weekend is Ferdinand fit for to be a 200-meter runner, given the kind of explosive force he has when he gets going?
I can't rule out whether he's okay for 200 meters, but he seems to be well positioned for 100 meters, because if you look at him running, his execution, the last part, the middle and the last part, where we have the maximum velocity and also the finishing part, is okay. So for 200, we haven't seen him running much of 200, but I think he can also be able to run 200. But his build, the type of his body and all that is more in 100 meters.
Well, you've had it and the questions are out there. Then, let's talk about the the 60-meter final. Everyone's got to talk about it. Omanyala's best time is 6.57. And indoors, let's call him a 6.6 runner. But we've got Lamont Marcel Jacobs, 6.41. A photo finish with Chris Coleman, the world record holder, who's done 6.34. Just looking at the quality of those two athletes, when we go outdoors, are they the same people we look at, or now do we start thinking about Noah Lyles and the likes?
Jacobs proved to the world that it was no fluke to win the Olympics in Tokyo. And he came back to prove to the world that he's still the best in short sprints. Coleman also making a comeback after that ban is also exceptional. But what I was able to see in Jacobs is that this guy is ready. He's ready to roll coming this season, and we need to prepare ourselves in this event, in this 100 meters. It's going to be explosive. Having Coleman and having Jacobs back, then this is going to be a tough race in the World Championship in Oregon.
Well, and remember that the World Championships will also be live on KBC Channel 1. That's in advance, and immediately after the World Championships, the Commonwealth Games. So, yeah, we'll distract you a bit from the politics right here. But let's talk about some other events. First of all, Yulima Rojas, 15.74, a world indoor record in the triple jump. Who's going to stop the athlete from Venezuela? And look, and let me just put it into context so that it comes in through. We had Mariana Bek-Romanchuk of the Ukraine taking a silver medal, 14 meters, 74 centimeters. That is a full meter. A gap of that. That's huge in the triple jump.
Yeah, she's exceptional. You've seen her winning the World Championship, winning Olympics. It's like she was built for that event. And she proved to the world that she can do anything at any time. Just a moment and you see her breaking the world record. And yesterday was exceptional for the Venezuelan to win the championship and also breaking the world record. For the Ukrainian, I think the mental strength. You know what is happening in Ukraine. And she was able to get the silver medal. Kudos go to the Ukrainian girl. For her to come up to that position, it was not easy.
Well, and just to show you the class, coming from Bek-Romanchuk, but also taking the bronze medal was Kimberly Williams of Jamaica, 14.62, a season's best. That should tell you that there is a lot, and that's coming up from Rojas. Now, talking about Ukrainians, there was Sergei Bubka, who had decided that he was going to be breaking the pole vault world record, centimeter, 609, 608, 10 till go to 614. Now we've got Armand Duplantis.
Armand Duplantis from Sweden. This boy is exceptional. I don't even think there's anybody who will be able to match what he's doing, because we had Sergei Bubka, who was doing very well in pole vault, and also we had.
And that was 20 years ago.
That was 20 years ago. Now we have this young man from Sweden breaking the world record at will. And you could see that the determination, because if you look when he was attempting to break the world record, he had two attempts which he wasn't able to go through. But the third one, you could see it was flawless. You could not be able to detect any problem in his pole vault.
And just looking at it, could we just call this event now the Duplantis vault going forward? Because we had the Lavillenie brothers at one point, offering the competition, but 6 meters 20. We're talking about what? Over 20 feet.
Yeah.
Upwards, indoors.
Yeah, unless something happened, nobody will stop this young man from Sweden, because he's okay. He's exceptionally well, and he's talented. And also he has a backing from his parents. You could see his dad was there, his mom, this kind of thing which is very crucial for an athlete. Yeah.
Well, and overall, what was your biggest takeout from the World Indoors, or which event stood out for you?
The event which stood out for me was 400 meters women, where we had the Bahamas lady winning the 400 meters. That was exceptional. And also the pole vault. The pole vault, it was quite exciting. And to end the event with a world record, that was spectacular. And I think now, from now henceforth, I think people will take indoor serious, because the kind of competition we saw there was world class. Yeah.
All right. And by the way, talking about how important some people take it seriously, think about the Americans. They had 19 medals in this event. Only Ethiopia came close with 9, but 19 medals, 3 gold, 7 silver, and 9 bronze. And this is just an indication of what it's going to look like at the World Championships in Oregon, because there's going to be a team title. The way it counts is you pick a gold, you get 8 points. So it goes all the way down. If you're 8th, you get a single point. So given these championships, America would have gone with the team title, and Ethiopia would have finished second despite topping the medal table. That's what's going to happen. And as we leave, we know that the Prisons team is building up for their athletics championships. You are with the prison service. And we know that we've been told we can go back to the stadiums. So we would like to start with the Prisons championships.
Yeah, the Prison championships will be held on 8th and 9th of April at Moi International Sports Center, Kasarani. Plans are in advance, and we hope that come 8th and 9th, we'll be able to host one of the most spectacular events in the Kenya calendar. We have new recruits who have been recruited, and we have new kids on the blocks who have been recruited. So we expect good competition during the Prison championships.
Actually, give us the names now, because already, if you want to give names already, okay, we can start with Timothy Cheruiyot.
Yeah, and we have the current world record world marathon champion, Ruth.
Mm-hmm. Ruth.
She was recruited into the service, so she's there, and we hope that she'll also be able to participate in the event.
All right. The other names, let me add in: Selfin Chespol.
Chespol, the steeple chaser, will also be in that event. And also we have the sprinters like Hesbon Ocheng, Dan Kiviazi. All these big names in sprints will also be there.
So we'll be looking out for that 8th and 9th of April. That is just 1 week before Easter. Thank you very much, Coach Stephen Mwaniki, giving us his insights on the World Indoor Championships in Belgrade, Serbia, and also, bringing out his coaching touch when it comes to the blocks, the use of the blocks by Ferdinand Omanyala. We shall be taking a short break, and when we come back, let's talk about the second of the conferences that are going to be taking place in Kenya around sport as an asset. And we're going to be joined by Al Patton and Mlondi Mashinini. They are from Rumble Ventures, and they're working together with 270 Degree Sport to find out how to optimize the economic and financial value of sport in the country.
Are you an aspiring candidate in the upcoming general elections? Do you want your agenda and manifesto to reach your voters effectively? At KBC, we have the most comprehensive and credible online platform that has profiles of all prospective candidates. Log on to www.kbc.co.ke/2022 aspirants and let Kenyans know more about you, your past achievements, your manifesto, and your development agenda once you get elected to office. office. What's more, the website is easy to navigate. We will create your profile, post pictures and short videos with your campaign messages at affordable hosting fees. Log on to www.kbc.co.ke/2022 aspirants today and establish your brand authority as we lead towards the forthcoming general elections.
Ilayska umada.
Mundos divididos por una sombra de traición.
Stop it. I have no problem with Mariela being here.
Well, I do.
No. Mother, what happened? What's going on? Why are you crying? Why?
My son. It's Rogelio.
Have you seen the way Alonso looks at Mariela? You have your enemy way too close, and I think it's about time you did something.
Is there anything you want to say about it, sir?
He was the one who killed her. He killed Florencia? Lying heart.
Fue sembrando el veneno y la ambición entre
And welcome back to Sports Check this Monday morning. It's the 21st day of March 2022. My name is Daniel Wahome. We've had conversations about athletics and also the Forum for Sports Policy, and also making sure that we have got a sports science set up in the country. That forum taking place on Thursday in Eldoret, organized by the Koitalel Samoa University College. And we had Professor Jackson Toa and also Peter Pertula from the Tampere University of Applied Sciences. And Coach Mwaniki taking us through Belgrade 22. And now another of the conferences that's going to be taking place in Kenya. And this one is about sports as an asset. It has been organized by 270 Degrees. They're working with the Kenya Rugby Union, and they've brought in Rumble Ventures, two people from Rumble Ventures who are going to be giving a talk to help exploit this, and they've got very interesting experiences using data and creating partnerships that have funded even global federations. On my immediate left, I've got Al Parton. Welcome, Al.
Welcome. Thank you.
And also we've got Mlondi Mashinini, and welcome, Mlondi.
Thanks for having us, Daniel.
Yes, and they are the general partners of Rumble Ventures. And Al, you have got this experience and some of the works that you've done. Let me just talk about how you got, FIFA, a partnership that has lasted to this day.
Okay. So in my background, I've pretty much historically been a sports executive, and I worked for the NBA, a couple of NBA teams, Portland Trailblazers and the Cleveland Cavaliers. After I left Cleveland, I had the opportunity to join Sony, and for their sports division, their sports technology division. They took out a partnership with FIFA to sponsor the World Cup for 2010 in South Africa and 2014 in Brazil. So while I was working at Sony, I was assigned to headquarters in Tokyo, Japan, to help manage that sponsorship amongst all the Sony Group companies worldwide.
What was the outcome for it, for you?
So a couple of things. So the number one thing is when you have a sponsorship to that size, you're not going to realize your return on investment on just selling TVs and so forth and so on. What we wanted to do is to get the group companies of Sony worldwide ingratiated in the sponsorship, and as they got embedded in the partnership, we were able to convey a lot of KPIs and performance indicators with respect to imaging, business-to-business models and so forth and so on.
Well, and Mlondi, let me come to you. And for the last 5 years, you have been advising African startups about, trying to make use of their fan base. What has been that experience, collecting all this little information and using it, to help of sports federations and teams optimize revenue?
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. I think what's important is if you look at the history of sports globally and also in Africa, it's really started from amateur levels into the professional scenes. And what we've seen is, as the transition happens, in a way, I think in Africa we've lagged behind. I think COVID-19 and not having fans in stadiums has actually shown that having data insights on your customers is a business imperative and not just an optional extra. So if you think about it, historically, sports teams have relied on just having packed stadiums and then being able to sell tickets and being able to sell food and beverage and jerseys at the stadiums. But what happens in a world where you cannot reach those fans because there's COVID? So a lot of our work has been around understanding customers, understanding their spending behavior, what brands that they use outside in the stadium or outside the stadium environment, and how you then use that information to create valuable partnerships with your corporate partners and also in terms of internally within with the business. So that's been a bulk of our work over the last 7 years, as you mentioned.
What have you found out that's different in Africa than you would find, say, in Europe and the US, where you have worked before?
A lot of it has really been the ability to capture the data. So if you think about it, a lot of sporting organizations use third-party service providers. So they'll have a ticket sales company, they'll have a merchandise sales company, and they'll have maybe another company doing their corporate boxes in the stadium. But there's nobody that takes that data and puts it together and starts creating a holistic picture that says, Daniel not only watches rugby at Safari Sevens, but he's also interested in athletics, and his favorite soccer team is this. And we know that when he goes to the soccer game, this is his favorite drink. We know that he has a family or a group of friends that he comes to the games with, and they buy X number of jerseys every year. So what you see in Europe and what you see especially in the US is they have that ability to merge those data sets, and they kind of create a holistic understanding of that customer, and they're better able to serve that customer, but also then use those insights to give a return on investment to some of their corporate sponsors.
Well, the 2010 World Cup, it came to Africa, a lot of conversations. It changed, the whole narrative that, probably Africa can host a big event. Right. What were the learning lessons for the organization committee and, some of the partnerships that you created?
Well, I think a lot of it had to do with just development. I mean, the fact that you can hold a global event to that magnitude, for the most part, it sent a message to the rest of the world that, countries within the continent are able, they are sports, fanatics, sports ready. And with respect to just, setting up the right type of infrastructure and the right type of business models, can host anything from whether it be a soccer World Cup to rugby World Cup to Formula One events and so on and so forth.
Now, let me just come to this. And one of the things that, if you look at Africa and there's a challenge, is how you get a corporate brand to partner with a club. Let me think, you want to come, work together with Kenya Sevens.
Right.
How then do you see that get to a firm so that they don't see that what they're doing is probably CSR,
right,
but they're creating exposure and a partnership with Kenya Sevens?
Well, as Malani alluded to, a lot of that has to do with fan analytics. And the one thing about sports is you center that around the fan. And for the most part, any marketer wants to be able to connect with customers. The one thing that sports does better than any other industry is that it connects to a data set of fans better than any other type of interaction. So if you pretty much convey that, you know, if you take, let's say, the National Basketball Association, one of the things that they do, they have fans all over the world, and what they're able to do to convey to the marketplace with respect to sports marketing is that there's no better place to put your advertising dollar to connect to a data set of fans. If you look at a brand, you know, whether let's say it's a Burger King, you know, if Burger King never did sports marketing, they're probably going to still sell burgers. But what you want to convey to Burger King is that the best way to connect with a rabid fan base is through sports marketing partnerships, whether it be, you know, the Kenyan Rugby Union or other sports around the world.
Just to add on to what Earl's saying is a lot of the brands that we work with, as what we do as a business principle, we don't just go in and say, sponsor this brand and then sponsor this business and then we'll figure out how we can get you some return. But how we start is we say, what are your business objectives? Like, for example, Earl said, Burger King, you're not going to be selling exposure to them, or a Coca-Cola. More people know about Coca-Cola than they know about football team, right? But they might say, we want to create sales leads in this particular area. So then we will target a sports team that maybe is supported by people in that particular area. And then we'll figure out through the business, how do we generate sales leads? And therefore, we have like measurable goals that we can report on with that particular brand. So it's not just a case of you put your brand here and we forget about it, and 3 years later we'll come and ask for more sponsorship money.
And Lonnie, let me come to you. In Africa, I mean, the data, how would I describe it? It's asymmetrical. It's very difficult to aggregate all the numbers around fans. We've just closed the 15th season in Kenya, the Kenya Cup. Now we're on to the knockout phase before the 7th series, and it builds up to the Safari Sevens. One big event that's known, but beyond that, how do you then, get these numbers to keep it going?
So that's what we specialize in. Earl and I co-founded a company 7 years ago called Fanbase Analytics, which essentially builds those data sets in the background, whilst what we focus on is every single touch point that the customer utilizes, and we collect the data in a very explicit and a data compliant manner. So in Europe, you have the GDPR laws. In South Africa, we have what we call POPI, Protection of Public Information, and so everything that we do is compliant and is done with explicit consent of the customer. But as the customer is transacting, we are monitoring where they're transacting, and we're collating all the data into one data repository, and so we have like the single source of truth that enables us to then communicate directly. So we could know and say Daniel likes rugby sevens but is not necessarily interested in rugby 15s. So we're not going to send you information that you're not interested in. We customize and segment according to the various customers, and we do this all in the background whilst the customer is just interacting with his soccer team. And what he does is he sees this improvement in the service that we are providing, but then we're also using the insights in the background to give the return on investment on the sponsors.
So the Kenya Rugby Union, you're working with them together with 270 Degrees. Yes. What was the brief from 270 Degrees and the KRU about what they would like to exploit?
So if you look at, I'm from the States, obviously, I'm from New York. And if you look at, let's say, the States, and I'm by no means is any country perfect, but the one thing the States probably does better than any country in the world is monetize sports. Sports is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And a lot of people say, well, it's population theory. And, I can push back on that a little bit, because Forbes just did a listing of the most valuable team in the world, which is the Dallas Cowboys of the NFL. The NFL is just a U.S. sport. It's not even a global sport, but yet the Dallas Cowboys are the most valuable team. So it has more to do with governance and the way the economic system is set up. So what we're doing in cooperation is we're putting structures together and business models together and looking at best practices on how to utilize sports as an asset class, where you look at it as an investment vehicle to bring, incremental value with respect to the business overall. So a lot of that has to do with just restructuring certain aspects of the business. How do you bring, partners to the fold? So just to give you a quick example, in the U.S., for instance, our sports leagues have one merchandising partner. And the reason why they do that is because you're able to take advantage of supply chain optimization, because you can buy a jersey from any club. So whether Nike's the partner or whether Adidas the partner, that takes care of a lot of the bandwidth or the stress off of teams to sell their merchandise. You go to the experts who are experts in selling merchandise, and you partner with them to give them a league umbrella structured agreement. One of the other things that is really taking off in the States and other regions is the whole aspect of sports precincts or sports real estate, where before you would have stadiums where you would just go to the stadium and then you would go home. But now all that land around the stadium, start building upon it, places where you can live, work, and play. So now, for instance, the Staples Center where the Los Angeles Lakers play, you can actually live there because they have condo development right around the arena. You can go to a theater show there, you can go to a restaurant, and you can go to the mall and shop, all within a certain precinct. So if you look at these economic engines, so to speak, what we're tasked to do is to look at what could be conveyed as maybe better practices or better case scenarios to actually grow the Kenyan Rugby Union, because it's the Kenyan Rugby Union doesn't have any shortage of fans. You have world-class rugby, so what we're looking to do is basically say, where can we turn where it's standing now to more incremental value later?
Well, Al is talking about the U.S. as a model and that, and one of the biggest, something I just found out, some of this, what we call useless information, is that in the US, I think it's only one day in a year when there is no live sport. I think just one day in an entire calendar year.
Yeah. What day is that?
I think in between the baseball season, I think just before the baseball season starts, the day before. That's the only one when they don't have live sport.
Right. Yeah.
How does television actually drive this asset-donor sport?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, I mean, like Earl mentioned, let's start with a local and then we go broader. There's no doubt that Kenyan rugby has the greatest potential and the greatest fan base globally since they participate in the World Rugby Sevens, right? So, to your point, how do you then use that to grow the fan base internationally? There's the stats I read is about 3 million people that are originally Kenyans that are living around the world. All of those people want to watch their teams. So to go to your question, how do we use TV to grow that? It's just partnerships, right? So some partners exist through like the tournaments that Kenyan Rugby plays in, but there's also potential to grow, for example, Safari Sevens in terms of the partners internationally that broadcast an event like that. But then when you start thinking about understanding consumer behavior again and understanding how the new population consumes television, and it's mostly not just traditional TV now. It's a bit of highlights, it's a bit of interaction through new media platforms. So understanding the consumers, understanding the platforms that they're engaging on, and being able to adapt your business models to suit your consumers versus saying, this is what we do traditionally. And I think that's what the best clubs in the world have been able to do. If you look at the club that I worked for, Real Madrid, they got 500 million fans globally. Only 3% of those fans live in Spain, and people don't realize that. So about 97% of your fan base will most likely in their lifetime never come to your stadium. So how do you engage with those fans? It's through those different platforms, TV, new media, social media. And so understanding where your fans are, and figuring out how they like to engage with your content and being able to adapt to suit them. That's how you build a global fan base.
Yes. And just to add to that, I mean, you know, the way my dad would consume television or consume sports is far different than I would. You know, so my dad would watch a sports match on, let's say, traditional television. But if you look at, you know, the African, you know, population throughout the continent, it has the highest percentage of youth in the world. And if you look at Twitter, 70% of tweets are about sports content over globally. So the way young people are consuming sports content is shifting. And if you pretty much have your content in a more sustainable programmatic outreach with respect to that audience, then it increases your broadcast rights, because TV is just one dimension of it. There's also streaming rights, and then, you know, with the growth of, you know, sports betting around the world, you know, a lot of that is, you know, in tune with, you know, live matches as well. So there's a lot of ways in which, you know, quote unquote, you know, television is getting consumed, but that only grows the pie with respect to the broad economic base of Kenya Rugby Union.
Actually, you speak about the young people, and there is a challenge, you know, whenever you try to get through to the young people, is the way you present your content, especially if it's in audiovisual form. Right. They don't want it. I mean, I can watch a football match for 120 minutes.
Right.
They probably just want 4 of it and move on to something else. How you get people to adapt to this strange dynamic?
Well, there's actually been some leagues that actually have been monetizing off of that. So there's some matches that what the NBA does digitally, where you can log in at a cheaper price point just for the fourth quarter. Just when the action is heightened. So there are things that you can do. You can do more, let's say, live in. There is a broadcast in the States. In the States, the National Football League is our most popular sport. They have a broadcast platform which is called Red Zone. So what happens is the broadcast zeroes in on the game action when someone's actually going to score. So therefore, the attention is right on the action. And then, you know, the in-between nuances that go on in the game, maybe young people don't want to, you know, are not that interested in. But if you have an element where you can zoom in right on the action and then key that into, deliver it, whether it be through social media or whether it be through a streaming platform or directly to your mobile device, that's something that, you know, I think the youth will consume and be a little bit more acceptable of.
Just the last point on that, there's been a study that's been done that it's a misconception that the youth watch less sports. They just watch it on different platforms, and watch being in quotes. So the one part is they might start watching a game on TV, but then they go and talk about the game on Twitter, and then they go and look at the different content that maybe the guy that just scored has created on TikTok. So they're still consuming your product, but they're consuming it maybe 2 hours of it, which is the length of a game, but they're consuming it on 4 or 5 different platforms. So it's the understanding of where the consumers are and the consumer habits and how they interact with the content. That's what the future of sports is all about, and that's how you create sustainable business models like Earl was talking about earlier. So there's no use in saying the game's only going to be on TV and that's the end of it, because then you will see the drop off. Mm-hmm. But if you're understanding how they're transitioning throughout the game, that's when you're able to monetize. And that's some of the insights that we are able to build in the background and use that to build a sustainable sports business models.
And you mentioned governance, you know, at one point, and if you take a look at how most of our federations are set up, the governance structure is basically to have the game run, right, and make sure that you're compliant. Say if it's a Kenya Rugby Union, they're compliant with World Rugby, Rugby Africa, can participate, get funding from the state, from the national government when it comes to the national team. How then do you set up the structure such that the commercial aspect of it thrives?
So ideally, you want to set up a separate commercial entity that just focuses on the business of growing those structures. The governance part you want to just face on the matches. But in terms of the business development, it's usually best equipped if you have domain expertise in that sector, whether it be business development, marketing, promotions, sports sponsorships. That is enrolled in a separate entity, and that grows almost like a separate NewCo or a separate business that is directly linked and tied to the governance. The other aspect of the governance and what happens in other leagues around the world is that they bring apart more of an aspect of partnership and inclusion, that, hey, we're all in this together. There's no separation between the players and the management and ownership structures. You understand that if you're growing this pie together as a business, everyone wins. So one thing in the States, for instance, is that sports pretty much is a quasi-monopoly. So if you have a sports league, you don't really have a competitor. So what happens is the Department of Justice in the state says, being that you guys are a monopoly, you have to work in cooperation and cohesion with all stakeholders to make sure that the economic prosperity of the league is shared equally. And therefore, if everyone is sharing in that pie equally, then everyone has a vested interest for that property to grow.
Well, in Kenya, we call it sharing the cake.
There you go. There you go.
How then would that, for example, the NBA and the few franchises that are there, Major League Soccer, the National Football League, how do they then, make sure that the entire ecosystem benefits from the huge revenues that they've got?
Well, they have a structure in place which is called actually a collective bargaining agreement. So they actually have an agreement that is a partnership agreement with teams and with the union, which is actually the players. And to say that all the money that comes in with TV revenue, merchandising rights, sponsorships and partners, parking, stadium concessions, everything goes into pretty much one pie. And that pie is actually split amongst the players for the players' salaries, as well as the owners for owning the team and being able to benefit that way. So if pretty much if you put in that type of structure, you're not leaving any revenue unturned. All the revenue belongs to everyone. So if you know that my gameplay and my participation, my going out to community events, my being a part of this league benefits the whole economic pie, and I'm going to receive a fraction of that each and every year, I'm going to be more inclined to, I guess, be a better steward of that business.
Well, let me talk about the athlete, and how do you optimize, an athlete? If it's for Kenya Sevens, we know they've got Collins Injera. If it's the Blitz box, they will, go look for Chris Rye or somebody else. How do you then get these unions, for example, the Kenya Rugby Union, to look at the core of the sport, who's the athlete?
Yeah, I mean, like Earl's saying, is that a lot of it is really cooperation between the two entities. There's no doubt that a lot of the funding needs to obviously go to development so that you've got the best players coming through the systems, but then a lot of it also goes into how, when the players are within the system, how do you continue to market them individually, but also within the structures of the organization, but then also looking at things like player health and player mental health, which are bigger in focus in the US, and those are some of the learnings that we need to bring into our sports as well. But if you look at a team, again, I'll use Real Madrid, who I work for. They are the only sports entity in the world where every player, once they sign with Real Madrid, they give 50% of their name, image rights to the club. And the club actually has internal resources that work with them to develop their brands. So everybody credits David Beckham for what he's done outside of the sports world with some of the big partners he's had, like Pepsi and Adidas. But if you track his career, when he was at Man United, he was really successful as an individual, but he was managing that all by himself. When he got to Real Madrid, that's when a lot of it took off, because Real Madrid actually put in resources, and they shared in some of his personal success within the team as well. So a lot of it is, like Earl was saying, getting expertise and having those people with the domain expertise running specific parts of the business, whether it's marketing, finance, etc.
And let me just come to, and just, from, you mentioned about the NBA and the Cavaliers. What, when it comes to this name, image, and likeness, how's that built around? Because there's, and at the same time, put that balance such that you do not have a case of, say, when LeBron James was with the Cavs, that he's bigger than the team, such that if he drops out, the Cavs may stay in the league, but they're not the same.
Well, the thing is, one of the things, I guess, the benefit of league structures in the U.S. is that if LeBron were to change his team, the NBA would still thrive, because LeBron would be at some other team, whether it be the Lakers or the Miami Heat and so forth and so on. So you want if your business in terms of the league overall is thriving, it doesn't matter where the players play. The business will always thrive. Players obviously, increase the bandwidth and attention of it, but you don't want your league to be beholden to player involvement in terms of where they move. Wherever they move, the league should still thrive, because the audience will follow in terms of LeBron's fans. They'll go from Cleveland fans to Miami fans to Laker fans. So that's one of the benefits. In terms of name, image, and likeness, one of the things that the athletes have is they're able to retain their own name, image, and likeness with respect to outside marketing endeavors that they want to participate in. It's gotten so sophisticated now that players are actually becoming investors and equity holders in these partnerships now. Before, you would just pay a player an endorsement fee, use their name, image, and likeness, and so forth to promote your brand. Now the players are getting a little bit more sophisticated, saying, wait a minute, using LeBron as an example, he made an investment to Blaze Pizza. So when he left McDonald's, he went to Blaze Pizza and knew that if he was an investor in this and also lend his name, image, and likeness, that value of that pizza chain will actually go up. So a $4 million name, image, and likeness fee for LeBron actually turned into about, I think, close to $300 million now in terms of just his presence with the company.
All right, and Londi, let me now come to something which is very interesting. How you use a centralized body. You've worked with Rock Nation, Jay-Z's farm. What is it that when athletes get in there, and there's we'll mention the musicians, but the athletes and the Rock Nation, and how does this work? Say if the Kenya Rugby Union would have some of the players under contract for the national team, or you can think of the Blitz box, all coming under something like Rock Nation.
Yeah, a lot of that, again, just comes back to how the resources and the reach that they have. So as soon as they sign a player or a musician, they understand like how to market that specific person. So you take the South African rugby captain, Siya Kolisi, he's signed under Rock Nation, and they've invested a lot of money into building his brand, and they put in the resources to make sure some of the brand partners that he already works with are getting the value in terms of return on investment, not just from his standard obligations in terms of you have to do 5 appearances, but he's going beyond and above to understand their business and what the business is trying to achieve with the sponsorship, and then helping them out with that. So and then if you think about it broadly, then they also say what are the other opportunities that are available. So for example, with Siya, there's been a book that's come out, there's been a documentary that's come out. So they start an understanding of saying, what are Siya's fans interested in, and what are Siya's sponsors best able to use his brand for, and then essentially much the same ways that you would commercialize a sports brand, they're looking at those athletes or those entertainers as that individual brand, and looking at different categories in terms of sports that they can then use to continue to expand his reach and his brand impact.
And communication is, from what I'm picking, is that you've got to shout at the roof and till your voice goes hoarse. How then does, for example, the Kenya Rugby Union push its brand, not an event, but such that throughout the year, I know we're moving from 15s, we're going into, from the Kenya Cup, we're going to the Enterprise Cup, we're going to the 7th Series, and I'm waiting for another one to come.
Right. Well, look, I think in terms of competitive play, the trajectory is only going to go up. So the on-field, I believe, will take care of itself. I mean, this country has world-class rugby. What I think the shouting is going to come in is on the business end. And that takes care of itself, is that once you set up these right structures and the processes in which you ingratiate more partnership, but not even just locally, globally. If you look at the sports landscape now, you actually have brands from around the world. There's no borders in terms of what you want to do brand alignment. You want to do brand alignment with something that is a world-class property that performs well on the pitch or the field. So I think the Kenyan Rugby Union is going to offer that opportunity, and it's only going to look up from there.
Mlondi, what are some of the little clever numbers you've picked up about Kenyan rugby as you did some backgrounding work?
Yeah, a lot of it has been, I think some of it I mentioned earlier, that there's a big potential international market that I think that we know, internally Kenyan Rugby hasn't maybe had the biggest focus on. There's no doubt, taking some of the numbers we've done in the tournament that Kenya Sevens participates in, which is Cape Town Sevens. There's a big jump from the 15s rugby into the 7s rugby in terms of demographic change. So the 7s you're seeing probably the 18 to 35 market range is much bigger. And so it's understanding now then what are the products and services that market is interested in, and then partnering with the right partners in that respect. The next part of it, and some of the work that we're doing now, is understanding the digital platforms that they're engaging in, how often they engage with the content, and that type of thing. So that's kind of the second part of it. But the initial thing that we've also seen is that there's a big opportunity on the youth rugby space that maybe brands haven't actually realized in terms of the potential in Kenya specifically. So where maybe traditionally they've been interested on the professional scene, but there's also that big opportunity in the schools rugby and the amateur leagues. And so what you always want to do is you want to capture some of those some of those fans with corporate partners at an early stage, so that they form part and parcel of their rugby experience.
All right. That's Mlondi Mashinini and Al Patton. They're the general partners of Rumble Ventures, and they have been speaking about, the making sport an asset, and looks like the focus is on the numbers and look at how the person consumes that sport and how to make sure that those partnerships help a sport, a club, or even a federation. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And they'll be hosting a conference with the Kenya Rugby Union on Wednesday, and it's been supported by 270 degrees. Thank you very much. Time for us to leave, and coming up next is our Swahili News, Kurinzi ya Mashinani, and after that, we're going to have Tamrini with Gladys Mungai. My name is Daniel Wahome. Thank you for being with us. Our sign language interpreter has been Suzanne Thuku.